Hello, fellow sleuths. We now return to your regularly scheduled programming this week after our Cobel story in episode 8. Chris is out trying to sneak into a birthing retreat to get access to his innie, so I'll be here to join y'all through the exciting end of season 2. Now, the episode name The After Hours feels a little bit like an oxymoron, given that we felt like this was very much a pre-turning point setup. However, another very popular show has had an episode titled The After Hours, and that was The Twilight Zone. So, spoiler alert for a 65-year-old episode of television, by the way, but in that episode, Marcia White goes looking for a gold thimble at a department store. Sounds a little familiar, right, Harmony? She's sent to a floor of that department store only to get a scratched thimble. Now, when she attempts to follow up with a complaint, she finds out that apparently the floor she visited wasn't real. I think y'all are tracking where this is heading. Y'all sleuths are smart. So, let's keep going. So we have all of our major characters in positions of distancing themselves ever further from Lumon. So let's set the stage for next week by talking through where our MDR team and our adjacent favorites are heading. Oh, poor Dylan. We had a bit of a theory that Gretchen's budding new relationship with Innie Dylan had a path towards maybe Dylan trying to reintegrate. This may have gone an entirely different direction with the end of his career at Lumon. While the proposal was most definitely a very bold move, it's now been very well established where Dylan's priorities lie. And given Outie Dylan's reaction to the interaction, I'd be hard-pressed to think that he would decline the resignation request, especially given that he already pitched the idea of quitting himself. But going forward into the finale, there could be two main paths that make the most sense, but one being much more fitting for the show. One being that Dylan does actually leave Lumon employment, which would make plenty of sense from a personal level. The more realistic option for the show, however, being that Outie Dylan makes sure Innie Dylan keeps working so that he does not have to work himself, which then puts Dylan G back in a position of either not doing anything, or what would be most likely, coming around to Helly's pitch and helping the team find the export hallway. But now let's talk about Irv and his dog. Okay, maybe less about the dog, but what a good boy or girl they are. So for the time being, Irv may end up being on the outside looking in. After his emotional goodbye with Burt, Irving actually listened and got out of town. But was this really Burt trying to help Irv be safe, or was it all an elaborate plan? We now got confirmation that Outie Burt was also a Lumon man after talking about being the one to drive people in and not know what happened to them. So was this a meaningful gesture, disguised as a way to remove Irv from the situation entirely? I tend to believe so based on what Helena has been telling her father about the Mr. Bailiff situation being taken care of. And also, as an insider, did Burt already have knowledge that Irv had the research he did? Or did Drummond have to go do the recon during dinner to find out? Either way, as the Lumon fixer, he's now finished with his Irv B mission. So is Burt maybe a larger player in whatever plot comes that's about to handle the MDR team? Especially with Irv being the only one with this information, could be a real major disadvantage to the rest of the team. One other thing we did want to call out from this specific kind of side of the story was Irv's departure was on the Adirondack Railroad, which only runs from Utica to Thendara, New York, and really only operates now as a heritage railway system, so scenic routes and experience rides for family, compared to an actual travel system. So, if nothing else, this is maybe another potential indicator for where Kier is located. So maybe we can further expect that the Eagan family managed to lock down a piece of New York, or maybe along the border with Canada, as we may have been thinking in the past. Now, regardless of where they're located, or how much imagery they use of the number 6, like the 6 Bardos in the rooms that Gemma was sent to, but, like the 6 pieces of egg, the 6-pronged fork. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but the Eagan family is starting to face some internal battles. Helly is staring down the barrel of her father's gun no matter where she turns. We have another face-to-face meeting between Helly R and Jaime, this time on the Innie's turf. Other than creepily watching in on his not-daughter trying to study the directions to get to the hallway, he may want to be more concerned with the fact that none of his employees are at their desks and not working in MDR. On the outside, though, Helena is facing what seems to be disappointment from Jaime at every turn. Even when she tries to reassure him that the Irving situation is being handled, he can't even take his focus off the fact that she eats her eggs cooked. she doesn't follow each and every aspect of the Eagan and Kier way. Clearly, she is not who James sees as the heir to the power, made even more apparent by the fact that when Harmony is attempting to sneak Mark into the cabins, she refers to Devon as, quote, one of James, in the passenger seat as an excuse to allow a pregnant woman giving birth unexpectedly in. So there have been many attempts at providing another option to replace Helena before it's too late. And speaking of the birthing cabin crew, Mark, Harmony, and Devon are finally going to give this the old college try now that they have a way forward. Especially seeing how Ragabi has just dipped out entirely. The reintegration process has not fully aligned since they are still needing to use the technology within the cabins to speak to Mark S. But Harmony should now have the ability to utilize her knowledge of the chip to help Mark make a push within Lumon to try and find Gemma. The first mistake she may have made, though, is how they framed her in front of that fireplace when he walked in the room. Not the most welcoming. But the other big outstanding question that I think we can take away from this that's lingering for me is, what is Rickon making of himself now that he's been left to his own devices and working on the INI literature while Devon is helping Mark with reintegration? Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'd also be remiss to not talk about Milkshake starting to do his own shake-up around Lumon. Miss Huang has been approved Wintertide worthy, and will be passing through the program early. There's most definitely no other underlying reasons for her to be promoted and sent to another office so quickly. And Miss Huang clearly had an attachment to her Kier ring toss game, but we know the Wintertide fellows had to sacrifice a totem. Something that comes to mind is, was Harmony's initial sacrifice maybe her attempts at the chip, the notes she had? Is that where she got the idea to potentially hide them in her statue? The Eagans may have capitalized on the opportunity, though, and taken that information beforehand. Also, we see a bit of a crack in Mr. Drummond's armor when Seth so eloquently talks back. Drummond may be in a bit more of a precarious situation with Cold Harbor not being completed than the other employees at Lumon. Seth is definitely putting the onus back on his plate to control the people at hand. Maybe Drummond is the one being pulled in two directions, similar to the boy on Helena's egg plate. But that is where I'm going to leave y'all until the season finale next week. I am so excited, and if Chris was here, he would probably be screaming at the top of his lungs about how excited he is too. So as usual, we want to hear your thoughts on this episode and what you think might be coming, and if you have a topic we didn't cover, drop it in the comments so we can discuss it further. And if you like what we're doing, let us, and as always the board, the algorithm, know by liking and subscribing. It helps out the Screen Sleuths channel, and we really appreciate it. So until next time, stay sleuthy.